Welcome to episode 5 of Adventures of a Boss Bae. Approaching 7 years in business, I'm reflecting on the lessons that didn't come from books. They came from experience. In this episode, I share the hard truths, leadership growth, and systems thinking that transformed how I lead, collaborate, and serve families. This is a conversation about growth, boundaries, trust, and building smarter, not harder. Hey y'all, welcome to Adventures of a Boss Bae. I'm Cherish, mom, entrepreneur, and the woman behind a whole lot of dreams in motion. After more than 20 years in the early childhood field and building businesses from scratch, I've learned that success isn't a straight line, it's an adventure. My early partnership taught me a few things, but the biggest lesson that I took from that partnership is that clarity and systems beat good intentions any day of the week. Going into a partnership, in my mind, never being in business, never knowing about how those dynamics work, I thought whatever you say is what you get, even though, you have legal contracts and all that. I guess I didn't know enough in business to make certain decisions. And so now, learning some hard lessons 7 years later, I know that systems are just as important as clarity and knowing what you expect out of a partnership, what your partner expects, and then having that in clear writing, clear understanding for both parties. After that experience, I would say I still had the same mindset. Teamwork makes the dream work. I'm very big on collaboration because I know that my program is not the end all be all. There are things that I may not be able to offer my families and children. So anytime I have the opportunity to collaborate with somebody that has a different skill set, I'm still willing to do that. But I just make sure that, again, it is aligned, and not just for myself, but both parties are satisfied with the mission and with the projected outcomes. So I didn't shy away from collaboration. I definitely just had to approach it with a different mindset, from more of a business mindset. I would say having an education background initially, I left all the business stuff to my business partner because that was not my wheelhouse. Since then, I have, taken some business classes and been to different workshops to help me get a better understanding of the business side, which is just as important as the nurturing side and the education side of a childcare business. The boundaries that I have in place now, again, are rooted in clarity and systems. I cannot stress that enough. I have learned to, set aside the emotional side when needed to focus on what needs to be done, how it needs to be done. And so my boundary is that I just take my time. I don't rush to make decisions anymore. If there's something that I don't understand, I allow myself to pause, get that information so that I can make an educated choice and not one based off of fear and being rushed and not being aligned to, like I said, the project or the mission. My relationship with fear and decision making changed over the years drastically, I would say. Again, initially not having all of the knowledge that I have now when it comes to running a business, a lot of my choices were made in fear because there was fear of the unknown. I didn't have enough information to make certain choices, I thought at the time. And so now one thing I know is if I don't have the information, somebody has it. I will reach out to whoever has that information to help me get a better understanding, like I mentioned before. I make sure that decision is not rooted in fear. Fear makes you make a rush decision, which could have other implications down the line. And so if you just take time to just pause and step back, it will be better in the long run, and you won't be trying to scramble to fix things as much if it's, like I said, rooted in clear alignments, clarity, and structure, systems. I realized systems were necessary for freedom instead of doing everything myself fairly early on in my own business, but that was only because of my experience running other people's businesses. Prior to opening up my child care center, I worked for a large program, a Head Start program, and we had about 500-600 teachers at one time when I was there, and probably over 1,500 students. And being the education manager for such a large program put me in a different level of decision making from just running a center. And so I was able to take that previous experience and bring that into how I run my child care center. I will say trying to run my center with the same systems didn't work, obviously, because it's two different programs and they need to be tailored to your specific program. So going into it, it was a little different because I also didn't have the team that I had access to with a larger company. All of the things that I might be able to go to a different person for, I had to do it myself. And so I had to kind of tweak those systems to fit in my program. But once I was able to tweak the systems and get past, the little speed bump that I had in the beginning, it really helped to be able to have those systems to fall back on, even if they were not solid because they needed some adjustment. So I would say I knew fairly on that I needed to have sound systems, and that as soon as I had those systems in place, it definitely allowed me the freedom to be able to first hire a director and then move out of state. I've been out of state almost 4 years. My program has been open 7, and so those systems allowed me the freedom to be able to do that and go back and forth and manage everything like I do today. The wisdom that I'm carrying into my next season of business, again, I would say is to just stay focused on the systems. Systems don't stop things from happening, but when things do happen, it kind of gives you a little boost to fix them faster because you have a starting point. If you have no system, you then have to create the system and then fix the problem, or fix the problem and then create the system. If you already have a system in place, you go back to that starting point and say, is it the system, or is it, it's more training, more information needed. So I would say definitely standing on systems. When it comes to collaboration, again, just making sure that it is aligned for both parties and making sure that we're on the same page. There's clarity in what the outcomes are for both of the parties involved. So looking back, I would tell the first year version of myself to just make sure that you give yourself grace for what you don't know. There are always opportunities to find the information that you are lacking. Again, like I said, I went into this with my education hat on, and I ran other programs before. But running a program and you being the owner, the person that is in charge of payroll, those are two different levels of leadership. It was just something that I had not experienced yet. So giving myself grace to know that that was my first time being solely responsible for every single thing and making sure these outcomes are what they're supposed to be. And so grace is definitely one of the things that I would pass on to my year one self. If this episode spoke to you, share this with a leader that may need to hear this message. And in the comments, leave me a little message to let me know what lessons you've learned in the past and how that affected your future leadership, making decisions and skill sets. Until next time, I'm Cherish with Adventures of a Boss Bae. Thanks for tuning in to Adventures of a Boss Bae. Keep growing, keep going, and I'll see you in the next episode. If today's episode spoke to you, make sure you subscribe, leave a review, share it with another boss bae who needs a little inspiration. And don't forget to follow me on YouTube at Adventures of a Boss Bae for more behind the scenes and real life moments.